out, y'all. We know now 100% that they were warned before. This is very, very interesting. It's ongoing and it's developing, but some of the information out there, it's actually difficult to get the exact details. And I thought I had already looked into this, so I'm pretty sure. I was already pretty sure that they were warned. I mean, I read it myself, but when you review different information, sometimes there's some inconsistencies that come up. But here's the thing. And the last stream was stopped suddenly. I don't know why. Is it because of the title? I don't know. But y'all, listen to this and listen very carefully to it. Yeah, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous.
Yes, high-level US officials were warned about the vulnerabilities of using the Signal messaging app before engaging in communications regarding the Houthi attack. In February 2025, the National Security Agency, NSA, issued a bulletin cautioning that Signal could be susceptible to exploitation by foreign adversaries, including Russian operatives. Subsequently, in March 2025, just days before the inadvertent leak of military plans via a Signal group chat, the Pentagon disseminated a department-wide advisory. This memo explicitly stated that third-party messaging applications like Signal were not approved to process or store non-public, unclassified information. Despite these explicit warnings, senior officials proceeded to use Signal for discussing sensitive military operations, leading to significant operational security concerns and the unintended disclosure of classified information.
Now, they keep stressing unintended. How do you know it was unintended? There's been no investigation to come to that conclusion. Yeah. Now, let me just go on to some of these people that are on this thing. Let's see here. Has Tulsi Gabbard been suspected of having Russian contacts? I mean, these are the people we're talking about, y'all. This is ridiculous. Yes, yes, and yes is the. I'm just telling you, pay attention. This is horrible. I'm laughing because there's
Tulsi
nothing
Gabbard,
else.
the former US representative and current director of national intelligence, has faced scrutiny and criticism over her perceived sympathetic views toward Russia. While there is no concrete evidence of unauthorized or clandestine contacts with Russian officials, her public statements and policy positions have led to bipartisan concern about her stance on Russia. Gabbard has questioned US support for Ukraine, suggesting that such assistance could antagonize Russia and jeopardize global security. She has also criticized Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, labeling him as corrupt, and expressed that the conflict could have been avoided if the US and NATO had acknowledged Russia's security concerns. Furthermore, reports indicate that Gabbard's views may have been influenced by Russian state media. Former aides noted her regular consumption and sharing of articles from RT, formerly Russia Today, a news outlet identified by US intelligence as a Kremlin propaganda platform. These positions have led to alarm among US officials. Senator Adam Schiff highlighted that following Gabbard's nomination as Director of National Intelligence, Russian media outlets expressed approval, referring to her as a comrade and suggesting that US intelligence agencies were unsettled by her appointment. Despite these concerns, Gabbard has denied allegations of promoting pro-Russian views, asserting that she does not engage with Russian propaganda. During her confirmation hearings, she emphasized her commitment to US national security and rejected claims that she would be lenient toward Russia. In summary, while Tulsi Gabbard's foreign policy perspectives have drawn criticism and raised questions about her alignment with Russian interests, there is no definitive evidence of improper Russian contacts. The concerns primarily stem from her public statements and media consumption habits, rather than documented interactions with Russian officials.
Right. So again, they say that there's no clear evidence, right? No clear evidence outside of the fact that she consumes Russian state media and promotes it, right? Now, let's go back.
I'm going to go back to what I addressed at the outset. I mean, this was not only sloppy, it not only violated all procedures, but if this information had gotten out, American lives could have been lost. The Houthis had this information, could reposition their defensive systems. So I want to get a little more information about this. Director Gabbard, did you participate in the group chat with Secretary of Defense and other Trump senior officials discussing the Yemen war plans?
Senator, I don't want to get into the specifics.
Ma'am, were you on? You're not going to be willing to address. So you're not. Are you denying? Were you?
She doesn't even want to say she was in the chat. She doesn't want to confirm it. This is the same person that was warned not only days before this conversation even happened about the Houthis on Signal app, but I think weeks before. Not just days, but weeks. Let me see here. Let me go back. Well, we can review that information, but it's definitely before, at the very least, days. But I believe what we've reviewed already is that it's actually been weeks, because the Pentagon issued not just one warning, not just one statement, right?
Answer my question, ma'am. You were not TG on this group chat?
I'm not going to get into the specifics.
So you refuse to acknowledge whether you were on this group chat?
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Why are you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's all classified?
Because this is currently under review by the National Security.
Because it's all classified?
Look at that smile. That is crazy. Look at her smile. Let me slow this down a little bit. This is not a game. And American people shouldn't think that this is a game. And her responding this way, it is like it's a game to her. And this is a leak. Everyone acknowledges this is a leak. Now, they don't want it publicized. They even acknowledge that. But it happened because of the Atlantic magazine or Atlantic newspaper was in the same chat. It's very, very clear that this was not supposed to happen like this. Number one, it's obvious that someone didn't, whoever added the Atlantic newspaper, it almost looks like they wanted the Atlantic newspaper to know that this conversation was going on, right? Not that it was just an accident, that someone is trying to warn the American people, right? Is there an investigation? We don't know. But she doesn't even acknowledge that she was in the chat when it's totally obvious. Look at this. Let's just go back.
Why are you going to get into the specifics? So you, ma'am, were you on? You're not going to be willing to address. So you're not, are you denying, Matt, will you answer my question, ma'am? You were not TG.
Look at her body language. She's swaying back and forth. She's extremely uncomfortable. She is extremely uncomfortable here. Look.
Another Trump senior officials discussing the Yemen war plans.
Senator, I don't want to get into the specifics.
Ma'am, were you on? You're not going to be willing to address. So you're not, are you denying, Matt, will you answer my question, ma'am?
Look at that. I mean, this woman is guilty, and she knows it. And I'm going to be honest. To me, my feeling is that she was very well aware that this was someone else has access to these communications. It's almost like they've been caught red-handed, because she is showing that she doesn't even care what anyone is asking. She's going to keep repeating the same thing no matter what, right? Even though she's caught red-handed. That's what it looks like to me through her body language and her speech pattern. Look,
You're not, are you denying, Matt, will you answer my question, ma'am?
look at her moving her body. Look at her. That's really, really weird.
You are not TG
Look at that. That is extreme nervousness.
on this group chat.
I'm not going to get into the specifics
So you
of the
refuse to
deliberate.
acknowledge whether you were on this group chat.
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Why are you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's
Why is she smiling? Why is she smiling? It's because she's been caught red-handed. Now, you know how something could be so serious, but you laugh because of it? Because if you don't laugh, the only thing else you could do is cry? Look at this.
all classified?
Because this is
Why are you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's all classified?
because this is currently under review by the National Security.
Because it's all classified? If it's not classified, share the text now.
If it's not classified, why is it under review?
As the White House previously
Is it
stated,
classified or non-classified information on this text?
I can confirm.
Director Radcliffe, were you on the group chat?
Look at her body is swaying the entire time. To me, this in my view, right? Because I believe body language is a language. Also, to me, her body language suggests that she knows damn well she's lying, and that she's been caught red-handed. That's what it looks like to me. I myself would never ever give her the benefit of the doubt, but here's the thing. Why should you have to? But on top of that, they were told that these hacks exist prior to this communication. How could she not know that? Isn't it her job to restrict people from using that very app if that was the case? Isn't it? And look, she's admitting not only did she know, but she's pretty much admitting to not shutting it down when she knew. Why would a person do that? That's what I'm saying. This is espionage. This is espionage. The question is, for me, how many other of these people knew, and that this information is getting out, and how high does it go? Does Donald Trump know? Is this prearranged to use that app? Was it prearranged? Is this how they share information, by getting under the radar with foreign governments? Did they prearrange that they would use this method, this technique, right? And why would the Pentagon issue a warning about it if they didn't want people to not use it? Why would they do that?
Because it's all classified. If it's not classified, share the text now.
They didn't even want to share the text that the Atlantic shared. The Atlantic had to share this because all of these people are in denial, right? That's why the Atlantic shared it. The Atlantic wasn't even going to share all the text. They themselves said, the editor of the Atlantic said, they know that this is improper. So they didn't even want to issue it, but it was only when Trump started denying it, denying that it's classified, denying that it has any national security interest at stake here, that they decided to release it, because they want to keep the reputation of their own newspaper outlet, of their own news outlet. Look at her body language.
As the White House previously
Is it
stated,
classified?
This is gaslighting. She's sitting up here lying to the American people, smiling in your face like you're stupid.
Or non-classified information on this text.
I can confirm.
Director Radcliffe, were you on the group
Body
chat?
language.
Senator, I was on a signal messaging group.
So you were the
Is that a yes or no?
John Radcliffe on that chat.
Why did he have to rename it a signal messaging group? This doesn't make you could see they're quite red-handed.
I was.
Thank you.
Can I provide some context?
Can I provide some manipulation? He's going to go into how the previous White House had been using these things and blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't explain why they're still using it when they had already been warned by the Pentagon not to use it. Essentially not to. Not essentially, they had been warned a week and days before they continued to do this hootie chat.
Senator, to that.
Yes, but I've got a series of questions.
Well, but I think it's important because at the outset you made a couple of comments about signal messaging using encrypted apps.
See, he wants to throw that out there to the public using encrypted. Like, everybody, listen, y'all, there's nothing encrypted like the military's encryption. Okay? Now, I don't know why he thinks that a company that just creates an app out there would be more encrypted than the U.S. government. I'm not sure why they would think that. And I'm not sure why they would doubt and go against the warnings of the military that told them specifically that that was not the case, that it doesn't even matter, that it can be compromised easily. They warned.
So that we're clear, one of the first things that happened when I was confirmed.
You see, he's going back to Biden. This is not about Biden. Why would you continue to use it when the Pentagon gave the warning?
As CIA director, signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA, as it is for most CIA officers. One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA.
We're watching body language.
Records management folks about the use of signal as a permissible work use. It is. That is a practice that preceded the current administration.
You see, why is he talking about a practice that preceded when they've been given direct instructions by the Pentagon that it's no longer advisable? Or not even that it's no longer advisable, it's not permitted.
Administration to the Biden administration.
Director Radcliffe, I've got it.
See, that's misdirection. They want everyone to think about Biden. That was when was that? That's months ago. That's not now.
A series of questions. If you're making the statement, the signal is a secure channel.
No.
You see, he's not trying to tell you that it's a secure channel, because he knows they had already been told by the Pentagon it is not.
Can I answer that? It is.
I've got a series
and encryption. So
it is.
Finish,
I understand encryption.
It is permissible to use to communicate and coordinate for work purposes, provided, Senator, that any decisions that are made are also recorded through formal channel.
Okay, so let me go back here and check something out here. Let me just go back to the chat. the previous. Let's see here. Here we go. I'm going to pull this up again, y'all. Let's close this out so y'all can see this. We can review this. This is he's just making that statement, but this is the reality. His statement goes against that.
Yes, high-level US officials were warned about the vulnerabilities of using the Signal messaging app before engaging in communications regarding the Houthi attack. In February 2025, the National Security Agency, NSA, issued a bulletin cautioning that Signal could be susceptible to exploitation by foreign adversaries, including Russian operatives. Subsequently, in March 2025, just days before the inadvertent leak of military plans via a Signal group chat, the Pentagon disseminated a department-wide advisory. This memo explicitly stated that third-party messaging applications like Signal were not approved to process or store non-public unclassified information.
There it is.
Despite these explicit warnings, senior officials proceeded to use Signal for discussing sensitive military operations, leading to significant operational security concerns and the unintended disclosure of classified information.
So those were procedures that were implemented. My staff implemented those processes, followed those processes, complied with
So are
those
you
processes,
saying
and finally, just please, so my communications, to be clear.
You see, they're telling, this is a very particular argument they're using. They're trying to make it, they're the ones responsible for following up on this, on the Pentagon's warnings. It's them that are actually responsible, and they did nothing. They continued to go against the warning because they're the ones that are supposed to address and order their subordinates and themselves to not use it within their specific departments. So they ignored the Pentagon warnings. They ignored the Pentagon's own directive. Listen, March 2025, just days before the inadvertent leak of military plans via Signal group chat, the Pentagon disseminated a department-wide advisory. The memo explicitly stated that third-party messaging applications like Signal were not approved to process or store non-public unclassified information. You understand what non-public unclassified information is? What is non-public classified information according to the Pentagon? Let's just go back. Let me pull that up again on the screen here, just so people can see. It doesn't have to be classified for it to not be permitted, y'all. That's the point. He's trying to fool people.
The term non-public unclassified information refers to sensitive government data that, while not formally classified at levels such as confidential, secret, or top secret, is still restricted from public disclosure due to its sensitive nature. This includes information that, if improperly shared, could compromise operations, violate privacy, or harm national interests. In March 2025, the Pentagon issued a department-wide advisory emphasizing that third-party messaging applications like Signal are not approved to process or store non-public unclassified information. This directive highlighted concerns about the potential vulnerabilities of using such platforms for transmitting sensitive data. It's important to distinguish between non-public unclassified information and classified information, which is categorized into hierarchical levels: confidential, secret, and top secret, based on the potential damage their unauthorized disclosure could cause to national security. Access to classified information requires specific security clearances and a demonstrated need to know. While non-public unclassified information doesn't meet the criteria for formal classification, its unauthorized disclosure can still pose significant risks. Therefore, safeguarding such information is critical to maintaining operational security and protecting national interests.
So you can see this man is purposely misleading the public. It doesn't have to be classified because the Pentagon days before had already said even non-classified information. Again, let's go back. Days before, right?
Yes, Tulsi Gabbard, the former U.S. representative and current director of national intelligence.
Oh, wait a second. Let's go here. Here we go.
Yes, high-level U.S. officials were warned about the vulnerabilities of using the Signal messaging app before engaging in communications regarding the Houthi attack. In February 2025, the National Security Agency, NSA, issued a bulletin cautioning that Signal could be susceptible to exploitation by foreign adversaries, including Russian operatives. Subsequently, in March 2025, just days before the inadvertent leak of military plans via a Signal group chat, the Pentagon disseminated a department-wide advisory. This memo explicitly stated that third-party messaging applications like Signal were not approved to process or store non-public unclassified information. Despite these explicit warnings, senior officials proceeded to use Signal for discussing sensitive military operations, leading to significant operational security concerns and the unintended disclosure of classified information.
But was it unintended? Was it unintended? How was that verified?
In the Signal message group, those were procedures that were implemented. My staff implemented those processes, followed those processes, complied with
So are
those
you
processes,
saying
and finally, just please, so my communications, to be clear, in a Signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information.
There you have it. He did not follow the Pentagon's instructions, their memo. They ignored the warnings in the memo for unclassified information, non-public unclassified information. Look, the memo explicitly stated that third-party messaging apps like Signal were not approved to process or store non-public unclassified. It was non-public information. It had not been known to the public, the Houthi strike. Even if it was unclassified, and classified. Classified, also you can't release it. But they're saying here, you can't even use the app for unclassified information. If it hasn't been sent to the public, you cannot use the app for even unclassified information due to security concerns that point back to the Russians. It's very clear, y'all. It's very, very clear. They are lying to the public. If they are lying to the public on purpose, the only question could be, in my mind, had this been previously known that these leaks would happen? That had it been previously known, obviously they knew, the memo told them. Had they known that this could get into the Russians' hands if they used that app? Were they told that? Yes, they were told that by the Pentagon prior to this incident with the Houthis. Were they purposely using the app so that Russians could get a hold of this information, or the Chinese? Was that prearranged? Who knows? But if it was, that's espionage on the highest level. So there's a risk here that espionage on the highest level is being committed by these individuals. Is there going to be a trial? Is Congress going to take them up? Is the Senate going to take them up on this? What can the Pentagon do? It's clear that the Pentagon did its job in warning them. They did not do their job in taking that memo seriously and making restrictions, setting restrictions in their departments, right? As department heads of the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, they did nothing with that memo from the Pentagon. They ignored it. They didn't warn their subordinates, and they didn't follow the memo's instructions or warnings.
We will make
clear,
that determination, because if it's not classified, share the text with the committee. Let me go on. Director Gabbard, you are the security executive and set access guidelines for classified information. Did you contact the defense secretary or others after this specific military planning was put out and say, hey, we should be doing this in a skiff?
You see?
There was no classified.
You see? She doesn't want to answer that. And now she goes back to classified. She looks at her notes and goes back to classified. But the Pentagon's warning was also non-classified, non-public information. If it's not released to the public, you can't and shouldn't be using Signal. That's what they were told in the memo days before, right? Days before this Houthi chat started having this information leaked now about the attack. Now, she does another split of words here and goes back to classified. There was no classified, but that's not what the memo is talking about. The memo is talking about non-public, classified information. Non-public meaning the public doesn't know, and non-classified meaning it doesn't even have to be classified. That's not the point. The point is not whether it's classified. The point is that the Pentagon gave a memo telling them that high-level administration people should not be using Signal to discuss non-public, unclassified information. Listen.
Material that was shared in that.
So then,
Signal
if there was no
chat.
classified
There was no classified material that was shared.
You see? There was no classified information. This is a filibuster. She's attempting to filibuster. She's attempting to not answer the question. This is guilt. She wasn't asked that question.
In that
So then,
Signal
if there was no
chat.
classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways.
Look at that stare. Look at that stare. Now, American people, it looks like what they're doing is they're looking everybody in the face and saying, your government has been infiltrated. And if you can't prove it, you can't do nothing about it. That's what this stare tells me. This looks like it was planned. They purposely used this app. They know what they're doing. This was a channel. It appears that they know this had been already a channel for Russia and China to have access to their communications, that they're fully aware of it. They ignored the Pentagon's memo on using these apps for non-classified information that had not previously been released to the public. The Pentagon memo states that, and they made that memo to these directors of different departments, CIA, FBI, Department of Justice, days before this Houthi chat information was ongoing, before it happened, before the attack happened, before they even started giving details of the attack, before the mention of the attack came up outside of the name, right? People should be very worried. People should hold their congressional members, their senators, the Supreme Court. They should hold all of them accountable, because all of these people are responsible. Each director of the head of the CIA, the head of the Department of Justice, and the head of the feds. They ignored the memo. Why? Why would they ignore that memo? It seems like the only group that attempted to protect the American public was the military. The civilian heads of these departments, they've capitulated, y'all. I mean, will you ever get the proof? What do you want to wait? 2-3 years? You want to wait 4 years till there's a new president to appoint new heads, directors of these so that they can do an investigation? That's what this stare is about, y'all. She knows that already. She's saying, haha, I've been caught, but you can't prove it.
These are important jobs. This is our national security. If there are no classified
Look at that stare.
and material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways.
Look at the stare.
These are important jobs. This is our national security.
She don't give a damn. She knows it's the national security. She knows that already.
Bobbing and weaving and trying to, filibuster your answer. So please answer the question. If this was Director Gabbard, if this was a rank and file intelligence officer who did this kind of careless behavior, what would you do with them?
Senator, I'll read.
Right. That's an excellent question. What would she do? They're talking about her subordinates. She gets the memo from the Pentagon stating not to use the app for non-classified information that's not already publicly released. He's asking her a question about that, and she doesn't even answer it. She's supposed to take the warning from the Pentagon and direct her subordinates to not use the app. She's supposed to take the warning from the Pentagon and not use it herself. There was capitulation. They ignored that memo. And it's not a memo that's just like, ha ha ha, we just have a memo. Who cares if you read it or not? No, this is the most important type of memo. No one ignores these memos.
Reiterate that there was no classified material.
I'm just going to reiterate there was no classified. It's not about whether it was classified. The warning was about non-public, unclassified information. Information that had not been released to the public that is unclassified by department heads. That information, they were warned to not discuss it over Signal or third-party apps. She ain't even answering the question. She keeps diverting back to some other question about classified.
Material that was shared in that.
Ma'am, if there's no classified in materials, share. And then if there's no classified materials, then
Look at that
answer the.
smile. Look at that, just that indignant smile.
You can't even answer the question whether you're on the chat. This is strangely familiar, and I think my colleagues will remember when you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor?
Traitor? Did he say traitor?
Ma'am, I have serious doubts. When you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor? When you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor? When you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor? When you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor? When you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor? Ma'am, I have serious. When you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor?
Look at that. When you couldn't answer the question, is that what's known as a traitor?
When you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor?
Look at her face. Look. Look at that. Indignant. This woman has been busted. The Trump administration has been busted. That's what you are watching. I'm not an expert. I don't really know. It's just my opinion that they have been busted of espionage on the highest level. On the highest level. The only breach that didn't happen in the U.S. government so far that it appears, we don't know, is from the United States military, the Pentegon. The rest of the DOJ, the CIA, the Department of Justice, the feds, right, and the CIA, they've all been busted. That's what it appears to me. They know this. How many of them know as much as this woman knows? It appears she knows everything. It appears, I mean, I would say she must be at the center almost. What about the Department of what is it? Not Department of Defense. That's that fool, Hegseth. He's a drunkard. So even if he was giving information to the Russians, he's so dumb he wouldn't even know. Like they already discussed, they send women, alcohol, whatever you want to people like him because they already know that he could be compromised. And they put every effort into it. But this woman, look at this stare.
Man, I have serious doubts.
Blink. Look at that eye blink. Just blink. Guilty all over her face. Total guiltiness. Just total.
When you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor? Man, I have serious doubts about your... Anyway.
Look at that. Blink, blink, blink.
Director Gabbard, I'm going to give you this. Tweeted just 11 days ago, and I'm quoting you. Any unauthorized release of classified information is a violation of the law and will be treated as such. So if this information is classified, what are you going to do?
Even if it's not classified, they were warned by the Pentagon. Non-public, unclassified information is not to be shared over third-party apps. Days before this Houthi conversation even had the details of it were revealed over that app. They were already warned.
Senator, 2 points here. First of all, there's a difference between inadvertent release.
Now she's trying to throw out there, it was inadvertent. It was an accident. It's not on purpose. I'm not a traitor.
Versus
careless and sloppy.
Malicious leaks of classified information. The second point.
Malicious, meaning you're a traitor.
Point is there was no classified information that was on
the information.
Meaning you didn't follow the Pentagon's memo about non-public, non-classified information released to department heads like the CIA, like yours, Tulsi Gabbard. The memo you read that said don't use Signal to discuss non-public, non-classified information. Exactly. So it doesn't even have to be classified.
This committee should get that information. Director
the
Patel,
National Security
Director
Council
Patel, my time's about out.
You know why that is? I suspect the Pentagon must know that they used this app on purpose, or suspected that they could be using this app on purpose to share information with Russia and China. I'm sure of it. You know, there could be a suspicion there. I don't know. But all I could say, if that's the case, thank you, Pentagon, for doing your job. And be damned to these department heads that didn't take that memo seriously. The American people pay the tax dollars for the Pentagon to protect them. That's what they do. That's not for free. That's our right to be warned of attacks, espionage, all those things.
And I'm going to use my 12 seconds that the chairman gave me. Director Patel, has the FBI launched any investigation of this?
Senator, I was just briefed about it late last night, this morning. I don't have an update.
Yeah, you're going to investigate this lady, Kash Patel? Hell no, you ain't. And if you do, it's going to be the most piss-poor investigation of all time. You did not follow the Pentagon's warning to not discuss non-classified, non-public information over third-party apps. The warning by the Pentagon days before this Houthi app discussion released details of the attack anyway, fool.
I'd like to get an answer by the...
You are a failure, Kash Patel. The American people pay you, and so therefore you just got no ethics. They pay you for a job you don't do, buddy. You don't do your job.
End of the day. I'm going to go back to what I addressed at the outset. I mean, this was not...
All right, there we go, folks. I'm out of this bad boy for today. this was the second half, the original part. This got cut. My original stream, it got cut. It's ridiculous that it would be cut, but it did get cut. I don't know how it got cut. It just got stopped. And I'm glad to see that this one, I've been monitoring it. I'm glad to see that this one was still live. Yeah. And so we have to take it from there. I appreciate everybody who's been listening. Share the dialogue. Please do. Let people know what's going on. I hope you like the presentation that I threw out there to the public. And I'm going to catch everybody on the backside. Peace. Peace, y'all.